In this video, I'm going to talk through the buying experience of getting this Porsche, this Spyder RS, and the configuration, some of the choices that I've made in choosing this car, and also in my configuration itself. So let's start, I guess, with how this whole adventure began, which was that someone pointed out that there was a Spyder RS in shark blue available at a local dealer. I went and checked it out. It was listed at $205,000, but when the cars are new on the Porsche Finder site, they don't include the ADM in there. So if they're used, they will show the actual price. When they're new, they show just the MSRP. So I went down there. It was a pretty car, and I found out that it had a $30,000 ADM on it, and that soured me a bit. At $205,000, it was really expensive, but I was able to say, well, all right, I trade in my Spyder and make the difference, and it's kind of all right. With the extra 30, I was like, nah, you know what, that doesn't make a ton of sense. But then I got connected with a dealer that sells at MSRP, and I got an allocation, which is even better than the pre-spec'd car on the floor. So I was like, all right, I got to do this. And originally my thought was, okay, I can spec it lower than $205,000. That's perfect. I learned a little bit about buying a car like this. So I think it's a little bit misleading, or the way to think about this car is not that it has a base price of $167,000. The way to think of this car is that it has a base price of about $220,000, and you get to option it the way you want. So that $220,000 is either going to be through configuration plus ADM or configuration. And so that's basically the trip that I took, and the way that I had to change my thinking about how you buy a car like this. Okay, so I've established the price. Now let's talk about buying a Spyder RS. So, of course, I've had Spyders for, at this point, a decade. I started with the 987. I loved that car. I went to the 718 partially for SCCA autocross classing rules, and of course then they moved my 987 to A Street right after I bought the 718. But I wasn't sad. The 718 is an amazing car. It is a better car. It just doesn't have quite as good a roof. Talk about that in a bit too. So it was a pretty natural progression here. The Spyder simply is my car. I love it. And I'll talk more about what I love about it after talking a little bit about alternatives. So once we're in for this price, let's first look at new cars. So if you were going to spend between $220,000 and $250,000, what could you get? And you're looking at McLarens and some Mercedes, and let's see. Oh, that's what we have new in the general Boston area. So basically you're looking at McLarens and Mercedes. And then if you're willing to shop used, you can get some Ferraris. And of course, some Turbo S's and other kinds of really high, a Maserati MC20. All of these cars are available to you for this price point. And then, we're actually pricing ourselves out of, honestly, a lot of pretty exotic cars, because at that point, I've priced myself, for example, out of a Gallardo by going above this, right? A Huracan, $188,900. It's a 2015. It's got 17,000 miles, but I could get a Lamborghini Huracan. And so you have to ask yourself, what are you looking for when you buy this car? Why are you buying it, right? Here's another Huracan. Again, it's pretty high mileage for a Lamborghini, but pretty color. And for me, the answer is I want to achieve the dream of my childhood with cars. And so the supercars that I looked up to were things like the Bugatti EV110, the Ferrari F40. That's kind of my generation. I did appreciate Porsches. They weren't like the dream car, but they were the attainable car that had the attributes of my dream cars, which were that they're fast and the engine is behind the driver. So those are kind of the two things that make the car fit my dream. And so the Spyder does that. And of course, then I also found out that I love convertibles. So Spyder it is. Okay, so we've settled on the car. Now let's talk about some configuration options. Okay, so my cars are blue. I love blue. I'm going to buy blue cars. Porsche does not give a ton of color options, unfortunately. Even if you pay, $3,500 extra, you're still only looking at an extra 5 options. And if you want a real palette choice, you go to Paint to Sample, but Paint to Sample is not available, at least not on the allocations for this car this year. So here are our options. We got 2 blues, and my current Spyder is a gentian blue. Now, I like gentian. It's beautiful in the sunlight. It really shines. It has a lot of different hues in it because it goes from purple to blue, depending on the angle of the light. And in the sun, it's great. In any other light, it's fairly dull. In cloudy sunlight, cloudy daylight, or in the garage, it is quite a dark blue, and the metallic doesn't really sparkle that much. In the RS, though, it has a certain benefit. So now, I owned a Lotus Elise, and that car got a ton of attention. I would get comments at, anytime I got gas. There was a time I was just on a local road, stopped at a stoplight, and someone on the sidewalk said, "Nice car." So that car gets attention. And again, it goes back to the question that I just asked when I was looking at car gurus, where why are you buying this car? Is it to stand out, to get attention, to go to Cars and Coffee? Any answer that's yours is valid, but for me, I want to autocross this car. I want it to be well-classed, and I want it to be an amazing car, plus the other attributes that I already described. So Porsche has this advantage that if you live in an area where there's a decent amount of wealth, a Porsche kind of flies under the radar. People will notice it a little bit, but it's not going to turn heads. Nobody's going to just randomly tell you nice car by the side of the road or on the sidewalk if you're driving a Boxster. The Spyder's a little bit different from the back. If someone notices, they will make comments, and I've seen people crane their heads to look at and figure out what model my Spyder is. You can see, for example, here, the black script on the gentian blue is really hard to read. So I've seen people behind me trying to crane their necks to try to read my 718 Spyder model logo to figure out what the heck this car is, because the tonneau, the double bubble tonneau in the back really stands out compared to a regular Boxster and makes it look like a 918 Spyder or Carrera GT. If someone isn't that familiar with cars, they don't know. But they do know something special and different about the Spyder. So gentian is nice on the RS because it's a really stealth color. If you look at the front, the knocket ducts at the front, the louvers over the wheel arches, those kind of blend in. They don't stand out as much as they do on other colors, on brighter colors. So someone who isn't very familiar with the car and someone who doesn't look closely is just going to think, again, it's another Boxster, maybe it's just another Spyder. But I ultimately decided this car deserves more. It deserves to be recognized, at least a little bit, for those in the know. The other factor that came into play was I mentioned the price. So when I got the allocation, my first thought was, oh, perfect. I can actually spec it lower than $205,000. I can get a cheaper car if I get the allocation. That turned out not to be the case. And one of the things when I first presented the gentian build was they're like, all right, you're going to have to get the Weissach pack. And I want to say, actually, at the outset, I am not at all opposed to this notion that you have to spec it out with certain things. You have to get the Weissach pack. Some of these things are to protect the dealer, because I could walk out of this sale at any moment up until I actually sign and pay for it. And if I do that, then the dealer is stuck with a car that they have to sell, and they want to make sure that they've got a car that they can sell. And so there are certain things like the Weissach pack. And by the way, everyone please pronounce it Weissach. That's the German pronunciation of the W. The Weissach pack. they want it because that's considered more sellable than cars without. I'm not 100% sold on that philosophy. I've seen plenty of people who don't think so, but again, when you get to cars of this caliber, the notion of resale value becomes a factor in some people's decisions to purchase, and Weissach Pack is going to make it more desirable. So anyway, they insisted that I get the Weissach Pack, and one of the things that I don't like about it is, well, the fully carbon fiber front hood, I don't like it at all. You do have the option of painting it with a partial stripe. I was curious about this, so I found a dealer that had one, and I got them to send me a photo. And again, so you can see that two things you can see in this photo. First, you can see that in just the right light on the front bumper, it's actually a really nice blue, but otherwise it's very dull. And the other thing you can see is that the stripe just does not have the right contrast from the carbon fiber to make it look good. So I think this looks very dull and quite bad. You do have the option to fully paint the front trunk if you have the Weissach Pack, but then why did you get the Weissach Pack? So I really like metallic, and that was what initially drew me to Genshin in addition to the flying under the radar, but I decided ultimately that I do not love that. So I decided to go with Shark Blue, which is the color of the car that's at the local dealer. So I've seen it in person. I've seen it also outside in person. Someone at Autocross had one for a bit. And it is a nice blue. It is quite a nice blue. My only gripe is that it is a flat color. But of the flat colors that Porsche makes, I think it does a good job of having variation in the shading over the course of the car, depending on the light. So if the sun isn't coming from directly overhead and there's a little bit of a shadow, you're going to get a nice distinction of color in the shadow areas compared to the bright direct sunlight areas. And I think that, again, it creates more visual interest as you look at the car. One of the things I don't like about Speed Yellow is that, and this is actually very deceptive, the configurator shows a very deceptive view. The reality is that Speed Yellow does not actually show very much variation in color. It's very bright, and it ends up being, at least in photos, I have seen one in real life. There's a local autocross who has one. He hasn't been around for a little bit with it, but it is a very flat yellow. So that's how I landed on Shark Blue, of course, it being blue and paint a sample not being available. Okay, so we've got the Weissach Pack. Let's actually just really quickly look at what that does. For those of you who don't know, basically all it does is it exposes the front hood, which is always carbon fiber, but in Weissach it's exposed by default. And then the vent here, the intake, the roll hoops, and a little strip on the back of the ducktail spoiler are all in carbon fiber, exposed carbon fiber. Otherwise, actually, I don't think the ducktail is exposed at all. I think it's just full painted, and everything else I described is in black plastic. Although I've heard that those are carbon fiber anyway, they're just matte black painted or something, but I cannot confirm that. I think they might actually just be plastic. At any rate, on to the rest of the configuration. Alright, so I got the Spyder top with so it starts with gray accents. It actually is the deviated accent, which right now, because I haven't configured yet, is gray, but that will change. So let's look at what that's going to look like. Let's just put the top up. Alright, so get a little bit more contrast. So what that's going to do is it's going to put a deviated strip all along here, and I think that's nice to, just bring a little bit of the blue color into the top. Again, creating visual interest is what my build color choices are all about. All right, let's get rid of the top for a moment, because after all, it is a Spyder. Okay, I will talk about the wheels next because they are showing here, but they kind of come along later in the story. So when I made my build, I got it up to around 205,000, and then the dealer said, "Build looks great. We need you to take the magnesium wheels. They're a $15,000 option." And initially I said, okay, price-wise I can do that, but I wasn't interested in the magnesium wheels, not just for price, but because they just didn't seem that interesting, I suppose, for the price. But when I looked into them a little bit more, I got a little bit nervous. They are brittle. They will break, and they are incredibly expensive. They're a $15,000 upgrade just to get the wheels, but if you damage one, my understanding is that to get a replacement in the color that I've chosen would be a $12,000 cost. And wheels are the most changeable and disposable things on a car. I did it not. There we go. Switch there. So I tried to find ways to not get the magnesium wheels. And that was when I first asked about paint to sample, was told no. And then I said, all right, I am going to spec this thing out with every option there is, and let's see if I can hit the price that I need to hit by doing that. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so aluminum wheels. I was originally thinking about them in black, but people are saying, well, you shouldn't be influenced too much by people. You should go with what you want. But I do agree that the black might be a little bit played out on this build. I am going for a monochromatic theme here, which I'll talk about in a bit. But they do seem a little bit severe, and I like this build with just a little bit of color. Now, right now I have the red calipers. Those are going to turn black, and I think you'll see that when I do that, that just a little bit of color from the wheels really stands out perfectly. There's just the right amount of color for this car. Okay, so neodyme satin wheels right there. All right, interior. Now, it has chosen the leather Racetex interior with the Weissach pack. We cannot choose anything besides red, or ultimately we're going to get color deviated stitching, so we'll keep this on the Arctic Gray for the moment. All right, so the seats. Now, I have never owned the full bucket seats, despite owning two Spyders. They have both had the sport seats, and I have liked them a lot. They were very comfortable. I mean, I bought my 987 from Virginia Beach and drove it back with a friend, and while he was driving, I slept in the passenger seat in the sports seats. They were very comfortable. And I think that claims that you need the bucket seats if you're going to track or autocross are a little bit overblown. I think that the sports seats have plenty of bolstering and you'll do just fine. But at the same time, this is an RS car and it deserves the bucket seats. They are the correct seat for this car. So I'm going with them. Now the downside, relative to it being a convertible, is that, as I said, I love convertibles and I will drive convertibles in most weather with the top down. I mean, obviously if it's raining, I won't, but or at least if it's not raining too hard. But I like driving in cold weather, and for that the heated seats have always been a benefit, but they are not available on the bucket seats in the US. Apparently they are in Europe, so that's kind of a bummer. So no heated seats. I will make do. I will just continue to bundle up, blast the heat, and I'll be all right, I'm sure. All right, so now the 3D printed body form full bucket driver seat. It is really hard to find information on what these actually are. Ultimately, these are not like 3D scanned at all. They did talk about potentially 3D scanning the owner's body and then printing them or making them custom to that person. They never did that. These are just alternative seat cushions with some kind of a mesh, 3D printed mesh layer in there. And I honestly can't tell you more than that. I will be doing a video on these just so the information's out there, because almost nobody talks about them, and it's very hard to find out really what these even are. Now, I only actually got them because they increased the price of the car, But they're another one of those things that I might find that I appreciate them quite a bit ultimately. So the other thing that they do is they add some venting in your sides, in your lower sides, kidney area, as well as down on the bottom of the seat. And I'm able to bring in the shark blue. So it's a nice color touch, and it's going to go with the color theme that I've got on the interior. Now, I guess I should stop there and talk about interior and that color theory that I've got. So I'm doing this monochromatic build with the shark blue and the black. And my thinking here is that shark blue is a beautiful color, but it can, I'll say, fill your retina quite a lot. And it can, I don't want it to overwhelm, and it has that potential to overwhelm your eyes when you look at it. So one of the nice things about the RS is that it has all these things, mostly in carbon fiber, some in black plastic, but you've got the Nakaducks and you've got the louvers, and I'm going to get down to the painting of the hood again, so we'll break it up even more. You've got the larger side scoops, you've got the inlets on the top, and all of these things, in the mirror, right, in carbon fiber, all of these things break up the blue. And what I realized as I was looking at it for a while was that they actually do a really good job of creating visual interest in breaking up that blue, creating interesting shapes and patterns for your eyes to focus on. So I went all in on that for the build. And then for the interior, I'm going to bring that same theme in. A lot of people go with like the yellow interior with the blue exterior. I think it looks okay on the Genshin. I have a yellow interior on the Genshin car that I'm going to do a video on next. It's fine. It's nice. It's a good offset with the dark blue. With the light blue, I think it looks too cartoony or crayony. It's a little too much brightness, which some people like in their high performance costly cars, and I can appreciate that. They just want it to be loud and stand out. I'm going for a slightly more adult and classic look. Okay, so the window triangles. You can't really see them in here, but fortunately I took a photo of them while I was at the dealer. Compared to, if you could imagine black plastic in that spot, it becomes very clear that you have to get the carbon fiber, otherwise it's just going to look lousy. In fact, one of my big complaints is that they didn't do the Nakaducks and louvers in carbon fiber. You can get them done in that. It's by a third party. It's quite expensive, so I'm not sure I'll do that. I might actually try to buy them used or something off of another car and do a layer of carbon fiber myself, just because they're really expensive when you purchase them through that company. But anyway, I feel like the combination of black plastic plus the carbon fiber doesn't look great. I like having it one or the other. So I would prefer all carbon fiber if we're going to go that route. Okay, so finally the hood with the shark blue. Finally, we have that nice offset color, that contrast, and I think this actually looks really nice. Of the colors that you can get without paint to sample, I think that this actually looks best with the stripe of all of them. So I'm very excited for that. And then finally, we've got the door handles. I'm going to get them in gloss black. And here again, you can see, I'll go big. Let's see if it's a little bit more evident here. Okay, good. So you can see how what we've got is the door handle. Of course, it blends in with the door because it's the same color. But as your eye looks over it, it's pretty flat. And then when you do the door handles in gloss black, it just creates this shape that rolls into the vent intake that I find really nice. And it's really all about identifying these shapes and defining these shapes that the eye is going to see on this car that I'm trying to optimize for. All right, decals. Let's start with the windshield frame in matte black. I love it. Again, the car at the local dealer has it. Again, let me actually change this dark because now it stands out a little bit more. Look at what it does for the silhouette of the car with the windshield frame in painted color, the color goes up and then it goes up on the windshield. When you matte black it, all of a sudden what you get is a line, and then it's got a little jump up to the tonneau, to the rear tonneau cover, and then that slopes down. And this is all about creating those shapes through color. So we're getting kind of into artistic theory things, but it's not just about. The point is, I want to think about those kinds of things. I am creating a shape for the eye to see. It's an opportunity to really shape what the car looks like, and I think it surprised me. I was very dubious about this option until I saw it, and then I got it, and it all made sense. So I love this. Let's just again compare on the 3/4 view. You can see again, it just does something different with the eye when you do that matte blacking. And then especially when you put the top up, you can see again, it's just an enormous difference because, it goes all up and then the top is black and it just sort of stops, right? But with the top up, again, it just goes up there, and it's actually got me wondering if I want to remove the deviated stitching. I might actually remove the deviated stitching. I'm going to have to Photoshop and see what that's going to look like for me, because seeing the deviated stitching color come off of the top from the matte black might actually be a little bit jarring. So that's a change that I might make before I lock in the configuration. Okay, next we're going to delete the model designation and the Spyder RS logo. There are two reasons for that. The first is that I'm going to get the car fully PPF'd, and in order to do that, they have to remove those things anyway, so why bother getting them? And the second is that I kind of like the idea that this is a car, again, that I've made it somewhat bright, but I'm trying to bring in that little bit of stealth of, well, it's a car that if you know, you know. And if you don't, it's got a little bit of mystery. And maybe you have to ask me, maybe that's a conversation starter, and that's fine. What is that car? It's a Spyder RS. But particularly for people who don't recognize the Spyder versus the Spyder RS, it can go under the radar just a little bit. I'm okay with that. I kind of like it. Performance. Okay, we'll do the front axle lift. Absolutely. I trailer my car sometimes, so that's going to be a big benefit. The chrono package is required by resale requirements. Okay, let's get to the brakes. So, I've never had PCCBs. I've always had steels. In the 987, the brakes were very soft. In my current car, they feel great, and they stop the car great. So I have no complaints about the steel brakes, but in order to get the price up, I am required to get the PCCBs. But here, again, you can see where I'm talking about when you get that yellow, it just looks very cartoony, very crayon. It's too much brightness. So calipers in black. Perfect. There we go. And here, again, this is where you can see that the wheels just really pop beautifully. And they don't shout, right? They're not silver wheels. They're not shouting at you. They've got just this touch of color, which I think looks really good. And now that I've got this configured like that, let's actually go back up and just show what the black wheels would have looked like. And see, it's just a little bit dull. Somehow, even though I'm going for this monochromatic theme, it feels like that there's just so much more pop when the wheels have a little bit of color in them. So we're going to go with that. That is my exception to the monochromatic rule. Get that little bit of color. Okay, so we've got all of that done. Now lights. Okay, we're going to go with the PDLS. So PDLS, I like the lights to start off. I like them. But also, they're one of the things where it is very evident the level of your spec, like from a distance. Anyone can tell, because you can see that the PDLS has those 4 daytime running lights, and the regular lights don't. it means that someone can see as you're coming, oh, that's a low spec car, or oh, okay, that person spec'd their car out all right. So aside from the fact that I like them, if you care about whether or not people are going to look at your car and think, oh, that's a low spec, the PDLS are something that's evident from the street as you drive by. Of course, I would have to get them to raise the price anyway, but I also happen to like them. Okay, we're into the interior. Deviated stitching. So it's called Speed Blue, but it is actually Shark Blue. I don't know why, particularly when we get to the belts, you'll see that those are listed as Shark Blue. I don't know why they have the two different names for them, but someone has done the comparison of the threads next to each other, and they are the same. So now we do not want, well, we can't get the standard interior. I don't think I can get this one. Nope. That would take away Visoc. I also think I can't get this one. Yeah, that would also take away Visoc. This is actually one of the biggest disappointments for me. Unfortunately, the dashboard with the Visoc pack is forced to be in Racetex, and I don't particularly like Racetex. It's harder to take care of, and this is a convertible. I'm going to have it open to the dust and the pollen and the air, and stuff is going to get on the interior, and leather's just really easy to wipe down. And so I'm going to have to live with it, but it's one of the disappointments. Porsche, why? Why with the cheaper non-Visoc pack can I get the leather dash, but not with the Visoc pack? It makes no sense to me, that particular requirement. Okay, if this is a personal preference, I did actually have the painted interior on my first one. It was cute. It was an aqua blue metallic Spyder, very nice looking. I would recommend not getting the painted interior. It doesn't look great. We can't get it with the Visoc pack anyway, so I'm not disappointed by that. Visoc pack is going to give us this carbon fiber here and along the center console and over here, and I think it looks pretty good, and it keeps with that black and blue theme. Okay, so this is just the deviated color stitching that we've already picked. Seatbelts colored, yes please. Here they call it Shark Blue, don't know why. And then steering wheel. Okay, so the steering wheel is going to be in leather to get rid of that Racetex. It does take away the yellow center marker, which is fine with me. I typically drive with gloves on, but even so, I've seen what Racetex steering wheels can look like over time, and it's not pretty. I will happily take the leather, zero cost option. And we will get the steering column casing in leather with deviated stitching. Onto the other interior options. We're not going to get the silly things like a key pouch. The door sills. So the bespoke one initially, so the dealer actually, local dealer explained this to me, it's not quite as silly. I mean, I don't have a message to show on it. Like, what would I say besides Spyder RS? Hi there, welcome. But the nice thing, if you want to do this, is that you can change the color of the lighting. It's not that important to me. I'm happy to have the regular door sill guards in carbon fiber illuminated with just Spyder RS. I think it looks very nice. Sun visors in leather to get rid of that Racetex. It's going to add the lighting design package, which is down below. And then floor mats. Okay, so originally I spec'd with the carbon fiber floor mats, but then I looked into them a bit and found out that they wear very badly. And so I changed that to just the personalized floor mats. Do I care about the floor mats? No. But again, this was something, an easy way to add $500 to the build. So that's what I went with. And there we go. Okay, dashboard entrance in leather. So what this is going to do is actually I hope the leather on my build. They should be, but it's leather / Racetex, so I honestly don't know with the Visoc pack what it's going to be. I guess I'll find out when I get the car. But this is the inside of the dash when you open the door, it's just that section. It's one of those things that you really have to know it's there to look for it and see it instead of being black plastic. For me, again, it's about raising the price of the car, but I think it'll be a nice little visual cue that I'll know is there, and I'll look and I'll see it. Okay, the climate control painted. No. We're going to go with it in leather. It is by default in black plastic, as you can see, so we're going to choose leather instead. Much nicer looking, much nicer material. Okay, no bespoke floor mats. That lets you add your own custom designs to the floor mats. Don't need that. Storage compartment. We are going to go with the Porsche Crest. This picture doesn't show it. This configuration doesn't show it very well, but I think it looks kind of nice, and it looks better than the Porsche lettering along it. Okay, again, none of the silly things that don't actually have anything to do with the car. I don't need the owner's manual. I don't even know what that means, because from what I understand in this car, the owner's manual is only available digitally. So do you just get an owner's manual wallet and no owner's manual? I'm not sure. Fuse box covers. No one will ever see this, but it adds to the build, so we're going to do it. Inner sill doors in guards in leather with deviated stitching. Absolutely. Let's get rid of that race text. Let's get that leather and extend the deviated stitching. Fire extinguisher. Yes. Now, the colored instrument dials. So my Spyder right now with the yellow theme has the yellow dials. Those aren't available on this car anyway, so even if you went with the yellow theme, you wouldn't get them. With my blue theme, it's not like I can get blue dials. The only choices are red and white. The local car that I looked at has the white dials, and they're actually quite nice, so we're going to get them, not just because we have to add to the price, but they actually look pretty good. The colored door loops, of course, shark blue, we have to do that. There's only cruise control in the assistance. Okay, here we go. We're going to get the preparation for the dash cam, not just to raise the price, but also it puts power up to the mirror, an available power port, and I probably actually will get the dash cam just to have the dash cam there and another video camera for recording autocross. The lighting design package was pre-selected, but it adds some kind of silly lights around here, but also I think on the doors as well, if I recall. Yeah, area of the door handles, door storage compartment, driver and passenger footwell, and it illuminates the mirrors. Okay, audio and communication. Now, people have mocked getting the smartphone compartment. I'm getting it to raise the price. It's silly, but it is what it is. It is just a smartphone holder. I think it's removable. I might end up removable, but that's okay. And the note about the 12 volt is, as I understand, a little bit incorrect. Okay, look at the voice control. It's zero cost. The Bose surround system. This was a feature when I was speccing out the lower spec. I intentionally didn't get out of principle because I figure this car makes so much noise, and that's really what you will be and should be listening to. I'm going to get it to raise the price, and I suppose it's worth something for resale value. There are occasions when I'm not driving enough to make it loud, so maybe I'll appreciate the Bose, but on the whole, I don't think it fits this car, but I'll take it. And finally, the deletion of the Sirius XM antenna. I hate that thing. It's a little ugly bump on my rear deck lid, and I'm happy, so happy that they allow you to remove it. I've never bought XM in any car. I have no interest in it, so super glad that Porsche lets you remove it. And that's the build. So you can see the inside, nice monochromatic build. On the outside, nice monochromatic build, and just that one thing that I need to do a little photoshopping with is to throw that top up and add the deviated stitching myself and see if it's going to look bad. So, oh, and the other thing that I've done is I've already got replacements for the red pull loops over here. So I will not have red sticking out on my blue and black car. They will be black. All right, that's the build. Super excited to get it. My build date got moved up by a few weeks, so now I'm looking at build completion, I think May 15th, and then hopefully sometime, I'm hoping early June delivery, but it might be later in June, we'll see. But next video here will be on my car, the existing Spyder, and then there will be some autocross videos, so we'll get into that style and we'll refine how I put those together. Then come June, it's going to be road tripping and adventure videos with the RS. All right, thanks. Stick with me, and it's going to be a lot of fun.